So you're going to die now. And then the second one was, I wish I could have said goodbye. And at that moment, I saw a flash of my parents, and I saw a flash of my best friend Dave, and he was smiling at me. And then the third that came in this moment was, but they will understand.
Holden Lee, welcome to Passion Harvest. I'm really can't wait to hear your journey and your incredible near-death experience today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's really a pleasure. So, I guess for the audience, let's start with your near-death experience.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, I was 17 years old, and it was summer, late summer, and I was coming back from work for the day with a buddy. We were working at a sandwich shop, and I was supposed to get home by 5 to go to a college prep class for exams to get into college. And I didn't want to go. And so he was driving. He was driving a 91 Chevy Blazer, and he was driving us back from work. And I told him, miss the exit. So I'd get home late enough where my mom wouldn't make me go to this class. So I drive up another mile or two on the highway, gets off. It started to rain at this point. I'm 17, he's 16. So he's like a brand new driver. And he turns over, gets back over the highway and gets on the on ramp. And while he's speeding up to go, his truck starts to fishtail. And I know that he went to hit the brakes and instead he hit the gas. And so as we're getting on the highway, he's suddenly flooring it right off the highway. Uh, and that's when we start running into this chain link fence. And that's when everything just completely slowed down for me. And three things went through my head at that very moment that have never left. They've always been there. And it was just this matter of fact, you're going to die now. And it just washed over you completely. And there wasn't worry about it. So you're going to die now. And then the second one was, I wish I could have said goodbye. And at that moment, I saw a flash of my parents, and I saw a flash of my best friend Dave, and he was smiling at me. And then the third that came in this moment was, but they will understand. Um, and that came with this context that I didn't hear. It was just ready made, like downloaded context that they will understand didn't mean now. It meant that they will understand in death. Um, and that you can't understand death in life. And that was just there for knowing. And in that moment you knew that they'd be with you before the blink of an eye. That was just downloaded to you. And then so I'm ejected from my body. I'm all of a sudden just floating. Sort of, I would say I always thought it was sky. Felt like I was in the sky. Um, and I just had bliss wash over my body, my entire body. There was no fear. It was just cradled in pure comfort. Like there's no words to really describe what it was. Um, but it was just perfection. And there was this brilliant, beautiful light just like right above here. I would say it was like right here. And it was an entity. It was a guide. It was something. It wasn't the tunnel that people talk about. It didn't feel like that. Um, my near death experience didn't go like way into the depths of, the crossing over experience, but it was just being held there in this light, and it just enveloped you. And you knew the accident was down there, but I didn't really want to look, but I could tell it was there. And I'm just in this loving bliss. And I've just had these three things go through your mind that have never left. I've tried to write about them my whole life. I've tried to just verbatim. You're going to die. I wish I could have said goodbye, but they'll understand. And that doesn't mean life. They will understand death. And here I am floating and just with this light. And then the next thing I know, boom, rushing back in to my body. And I'm hanging upside down in a car that's rolled off the highway. We're in a business parking lot that's like down a hill. We'd rolled several times and slid across on the roof into the middle of this business parking lot. And I'm hanging upside down. I've got glass in my eyes. I've got my face is all cut up, with blood in my eyes. And I remember seeing radiator fluid uh, leaking out of the car. And in that moment, and of course, there's a sense of shock, but it was more like where I had just been. I'm hanging there and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? I don't want to be here. I was 17 years old and, I it always fought depression and anxiety and things like that growing up. And suddenly had this taste of the divine, this beautiful perfection moment. And I was hanging upside down in the car and it was very much like, I don't want to be here. And my buddy he had managed to climb down. My car side of the car was a little more crunched and I could have probably got my buckle out, but I didn't have any sense that I wanted to move. I was really in shock that I was back and I didn't want to be there. And then the paramedics had to climb in through the back window and kind of pull me down and out and went to the hospital and cleaned me up and, sent me home. And that brief moment for the rest of my life has it guided everything since that day. I mean, it changed the course of my life. It changed the things I pursued, everything I went after. I mean, I came from a very Catholic family, business family. I was going to, you know, go into, probably some kind of finance or something. I had an internship set up for the following summer for, a finance internship. And it was after that moment. Well, it was really after that day. What happened was I went to bed that night. I hadn't had any emotion like since the accident. It was just like, why am I here? And I got back from the hospital and I took a shower and in the shower, I just collapsed. I collapsed to my knees and I bawled. It was like right out of the movies, just overwhelming emotion, just pouring out of you, just sobbing. And, uh, and then very much in a weird way, I woke up the next day with energy just in my body, coursing through my body. And like in a very physical, real sense, you could just feel it and you could direct it and it could go into your head and down. And, it'd probably be 20 years later until I kind of learned more spiritually what that might be. But at the time, I'm just a 17-year-old who's suddenly completely empathic, completely feels everything anyone's feeling just from that. It wasn't like that before. I was not a bad kid, but I didn't have a sense of, the life within the life around you that all of a sudden I came back from this moment with God or your spirit guide or whatever, or the universe. And suddenly I just have this energy in me and I feel everything and, and I feel love and yeah. And suddenly you couldn't really relate to the world around you. You couldn't, you just kind of saw it all for what it was, at least all the um, corporations, the greed, the money, it didn't mean anything. And, uh, and that was a reckoning in my life for years to come following that. This experience never got far away from me and it never did to this day. But, there were years of, you know, worsening depression and anxiety no longer fitting into a world suddenly. And, you're 17 years old when this happened. And I said it before, you're just sort of trying to figure out how to talk to girls. And, and suddenly the world's flipped upside down and you very much feel like a freak. You've got energy inside you and you can't really relate to what's going around you. And so it took a long time to figure out, but eventually it did through years of, meditation and spiritual practices and, different medicines of nature. Uh, and what evolved from that was where I am today and a teacher and a healer and have a beautiful outlook for life. But yeah, it wasn't like this near death experience just happened and then you were enlightened. You've touched God, you touched the universe. It's sort of whatever you want to call it. There was no sense that there's any religion in what this was. It was, that it was just a sense that it's a loving, beautiful piece that all are connected to through consciousness and subconsciousness. And there's this very much this sense that the mind is connected to to a web of an entanglement of consciousness that we sort of feed and we feed from and ebb and flow with kind of light and darkness. And yeah, those are, that's all sort of things that I was able to glean from that experience. So yeah, took years to kind of get it back together, go through some dark times, but sort of rebuild yourself on the foundational principles of, what it means to live a good life, and that, eating right, meditation practice, prayer practice, journaling. I mean, all these things, exercise, all these things to feed our body so that we can fuel our mind and really keep a clean mind and connect more powerfully to consciousness and expanding consciousness and rising consciousness. There's always this sense that we're sort of given this beautiful gift of empathy and love and grace, and potentially our whole purpose on earth is to just raise that vibration for those who don't have it. Almost take an ape-like mammal and give it consciousness. That's sort of what I've gleaned over the years after that experience and through trance meditation, prayer, different medicines, is that, we're really here as almost a experiment in love and grace and beauty to take take beast and make it God in a way.
Holden, thank you. That was so beautiful. And thank you for sharing your experience. Life can be incredibly filled with suffering, can't it?
It absolutely
And
can.
beauty.
And beauty. I mean, it's all things. Life is all things. And that's what really has come across. That's what I've learned from all of this is, there's so much suffering in the world. Um, but we always have that chance to renew in the moment. And, change does, a lot of people want change to be instant, but change takes time. True change takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of work. And we live in a world where I don't think people fight doing the real work that it takes to change a lot of times. And that's facing hard truths about yourself, your life, your past. But it's also facing the reality that you know, that it's up to you. No one can change for you, and you have to accept that you really are like the eye of God on earth. You are here, like God is within you, God, the universe is within you, and you have the power to create beauty and perfection and to fix yourself and to fix others. But you have to do the work and you have to tap into the right energy fields. And you have to, with that said, you have to avoid the negative ones. So easy to get consumed in the mindless media trap. It's all negative and it's all just sort of meant to keep our attention and dump our dopamine and, violence in movies and, all these things sort of suck from, and this isn't coming from a Christian ideology. This is just coming from the idea that we feed sort of this conscious web entanglement of reality, and we take from it and we feed it, and you choose if you feed it beauty or if you feed it misery. You choose if you receive beauty or if you receive misery, and that's not to say that all of us have some easy lot or that life is fair, that everyone's on some equal playing field. But there's very much a sense that you chose that coming in, you chose your journey, you chose your challenges, and it's just part of what you're doing to grow stronger during your time here and to do your little part, hopefully, in altering the course of eons of history. I guess I always picture it like evolving over eons, whatever that means, linear or non-linear. It's beyond our ability to really understand it. It's always just sort of like we're doing our little ant mind part in this beautiful colony that's beyond, we can only see the universe. Perhaps it's way beyond the universe. Perhaps it's a billion universes and we're just a speck of sand on the knee of some entity that we couldn't even fathom getting up to the brain of it's so much larger than us and it's beautiful. And I guess if there's one message I want to give, so many people are afraid, so many people are in fear, so many people are in fear of death. But from my experience, there's nothing you ever have to fear. You're just, this moment was wrapped in just pure beauty and bliss. And, I've heard about people who have these near death experiences and they experience sort of a hell type situation. And that comes back to my idea that this starts in the subconscious. It starts in your mind, and people want to dismiss that because they dismiss the mind, but they don't understand what the mind is. It's an antenna to all consciousness. And a near death experience may start in the mind, but it can quickly, your soul, your energy, your consciousness returns to this web of entanglement back to its home, wherever it comes from. And so I really do believe when people start off on these really fearful near death experiences, that is sometimes a subconscious upbringing. Maybe they were in a very strict, you know, Christian upbringing or Muslim upbringing, and they have a lot of fear. But often you hear these things break through into enlightenment, and I feel like that's sort of getting past their initial subconscious, and that's when their energy is starting to cross over in those moments to more of the truthful, um, greatest God consciousness, the universe consciousness, which I believe is allowed to give us free reign, free choice. But at the end of the day, it's an experiment in love. And all my travels, all my journeys, my near death experience brought me to that conclusion that we are light beings of love, and we're very much on a mission to raise that light and to increase consciousness and to make the world better for animals, people, nature, all of it. It's all part of it. Animals are part of it too. Nature is part of it. I mean, we even know now that, these plants communicate underground and a mother tree can divert water underground by a root system for a younger tree. I mean, there's consciousness everywhere and we're all what we're a part of. It's not a separate thing. It's all one thing. So it's our job to make it, to do our part to make this world a better place.
Holden, you are adorable and intense and so sensitive. I mean, I love you.
Oh, thank
At,
you.
at 17, to come back and to be so sensitive that to the world must be incredibly hard. I know you suffered after your near-death experience from depression and addiction.
Yes.
Do you mind sharing that? I find a lot of people that are incredibly sensitive and open to the world can suffer addictions, and how you overcame this.
Yeah. So I always maybe had a propensity for depression, even from a younger age. There was some abuse in my young life. But I managed. But after this, it was different. It was more just as if you saw through all the power structures here just to control and make money and whatever they do. And you couldn't relate to the idea of, just going out and getting a job to make money, to work for 30, 40 years, and then, have these great years of your life just sucked away. It was the idea that you don't need that much money. You could choose happiness and flexibility, and not everyone gets these choices. So I realized there's a paradigm of, trouble I can get myself into in saying these things because not everyone has beautiful choice. A lot of people are stuck in awful situations, and that's truly awful. What I'll say to that is, from my senses, that in a way, this is part of your journey and you chose that. But anyway, back to my stuff. Yeah. So I also think what I was trying to do is had this moment of bliss, and I think I was trying to recreate it for so many years, and through drugs, through alcohol, and just through not making great life choices. And you're young, and I left my I moved out of the state. I dropped out of school and I left. I very much felt like a freak. And I didn't come from a world where people would understand me. And I didn't have a community for any kind of understanding for what I've been through and what I felt inside. So I left and I was just on my own. And I knew for many years I was walking the line between light and darkness. It was almost like I knew I had to. I was almost pushing to see how far I could go, um, with always hoping I could come back and maybe recreating, certain experiences, maybe the near death experience, trying to have a moment of what I felt again. And that's not to say that I knew this was a spiritual thing within me. I knew it. I've done a couple of these shows now, and you get people in the comments saying all kinds of weird things. Oh, you've got a demon in you, and this and that. You're like, no, that's nonsense. It's just, you're feeding some nasty stuff. But like, no, it's God, it's light, it's just this loving beauty. But at the same time, you're you're a kid and you're kind of messed up anyway, and you're just trying to figure out life. And so yeah, it took me on some dark path. And we'll just say this, eventually I sort of had an epiphany that none of that was going to lead me anywhere. And and so I think I cleaned up my life by I started working out. I started walking really. One of the main things I did is I started walking. Every morning I'd get up at 4:30 a.m., like way before the sun was up, and I'd walk for 5, 6 miles. And by the time I got home, the sun was rising, and then I'd go to work. And that was so powerful for me, just in the quietness. I wouldn't have headphones on. I just walk in the quiet of the pre-dawn hour, and just um, something about that was very powerful. So walking was so big. And then I changed my diet. I really, I figured out I had some dietary issues. There's a gene mutation called MTHFR. They call it the motherfucker gene. You can edit that out. But anyway, it's a gene mutation where you don't process B vitamins really well, or folate. And I realized I had that. And for a lot of people with depression, anxiety, and even ADHD, and even they've seen it in autism and stuff, they have this mutation. And you start taking a methylated B vitamin, and you don't want folic acid, which is added into cereals and stuff, and kind of gross when you learn what that process is, but you do folate. And once I started doing these vitamins, my energy just turned around. And suddenly just had all this energy. Like at first it was too much. I was just buzzing with energy from finally being able to absorb B vitamins. So a lot of times we focus on the external for depression and anxiety, but for me, a big factor was just figuring out some things with my body. And apparently, up to 50% of the population has some sort of one of these gene mutations on this thing, and they just don't know it. And really, if you just start taking a methylated B vitamin, your body's suddenly able to absorb it a lot better. And I saw instant results with that. So that was a big thing. And then I had to wean off anxiety medication and depression and medication, but it became like a thing for me, like I'm going to do it. And, you know, sometimes you need medicine in acute moments in life. And of course you should do that. For me at least, to really feel the world again, I knew I was in a place where I could get off things, get off antidepressants, get off anxiety medications. All the drugs were gone. So I weaned off that stuff. And suddenly, I mean, it just takes time. It takes hard work. And alcohol too. I stopped drinking. I mean, at least for me, that helped a ton. And marijuana, I stopped smoking marijuana. A lot of people, it's very casual about that these days, at least in the United States. And I don't think people understand how much, it's a beautiful medicine when used appropriately. And everyone just abuses it here. It's like it's more popular than drinking in the US now. I just saw that in the news yesterday. So I got up, but I just, you got to clean that body, clean that mind to get closer back to the universe, closer back to the source of love and life. And I always still had this energy within me. It was always there, but, I started to respect it. And I started to understand, through education, reading more about it. You know, what someone told me, and what I tend to believe is that I had had a kundalini awakening, that can be an instant kundalini awakening during a near death moment. And if you're not prepared, that can send your life into chaos. And I believe that that's what happened to me. And it would take me about 15 years to realize that maybe that's what I had undergone, and sort of the serpent energy rising up in your body, which is a divine energy. Um, and so I was able to just appreciate it. And I don't know. Here's where there were psychedelic medicines within my journey of healing. You can always take that out if you need to. But I do, that was a big part of my healing, and finally
Plant
connecting.
medicine. You did mention that a few times.
Plant medicines, yes. Yeah, I mean, I've always been an explorer, and I think more so since the near-death experience, because I just wasn't able to fit into regular life. So, I went into the woods for 5 weeks one time in Washington State with a giant bag of, golden teacher mushrooms and a tent and some protein bars and water, and I just meditated and took journeys and fought demons and really exercised a lot of this, shit from my past that hadn't been resolved. And, I'd already been on my healing journey at this point. But when I came out of there, it was almost as if had been fully healed.
5 weeks,
And
that's a long time.
yeah, yeah, my whole life's been kind of odd things like that, just pushing the boundaries of, I really went in there saying, okay, I've done all this work, but in the core of me, I think a lot of people can feel this because it's deep childhood trauma, something that happened to you in childhood. Then I remember being a kid, a teenager, and just being before my near-death experience even, and just saying, feeling like something was missing from you. Something like a hole was gone, or a taste, a sense, a smell. It wasn't there. I'd lay in bed at night and feel like something was gone. Um, and and what the plant medicine allowed seemingly was to fix that final hole in me. Like I came out and I no longer had this sense of inferiority, or a lot of people who've had abuse or sexual abuse have that sense of that they just something's missing, something's been taken from them that they'll never get back, and or the sense of just, yeah, not belonging complex, or I'm not putting the right word on it, but you know what I mean. And I feel like I came out of that those woods just very much healed, and I don't have that anymore. And I did a lot of hard work, and I still do the hard work, and there's daily meditation practices and daily journaling and exercising and eating well and abstaining from, substance. Um, but yeah, I do credit that for maybe doing some final healing. I mean, that's an intense thing I did. I'm not going to get
Yes.
too deep into the in and outs of what that month entailed, but you know, there's there are different there are many things you're facing down, the light, the dark. You're coming to terms with a lot. And I feel like I came out almost as if it was a growth mission. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. What's your advice for those of the audience that is perhaps want to be clean, know what's right, and are struggling with addiction?
Well, here's the first thing I'll say. And let me first say, I talk about addiction and drugs, and then I talk about psychedelics in the next breath. And I get people who come to me and say, what are you talking about? This is just a junkie. This is just, and what you have to understand is psychedelics are not street drugs. That is furthest from the truth. And anyone who claims that just has no experience with psychedelics. If you've taken mushrooms or you've taken DMT, I mean, there's some study that 2 out of 3 atheists after taking DMT no longer claim to be atheists. I mean, it is a direct connection with with the universe.
Yeah.
Then
So
there's
I'm
street
so
drugs.
just to interrupt, I'm glad you
Yeah.
clarified that because I wasn't
Yeah.
referring to that.
No, and I know you're not. I'm just picturing the listener in my
Right.
head who comments on my YouTube channel who really disregards psychedelics as just another drug when
Right.
it's the furthest thing from the truth.
Hmm.
A drug, a street drug, you want to do more of.
Or
You want to
alcohol,
do
or
it. You want,
stand
yeah, you want
what
to
you
do
were
it. Yeah,
talking
or
about.
alcohol or cigarettes. I used to chain smoke. You want to do more of it. Psychedelics, you can do it once, and you have. I mean, you do DMT, and I now I've done it several times, but most people will do DMT and never again, but they'll be changed forever, and they will suddenly believe in something. So these are not to be conflated as the same thing. As for someone experiencing addiction, and feeling hopeless, I guess, within addiction, um, you know, it's all going to be a personal journey. For me, I never did AA, and then America, that's Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not sure if that's the same in France. Um,
Well, most of the audience is in America.
okay, good to know. Yeah, I mean, I've had family members with addiction issues, and they've had great luck with AA. I just really think you've got to flip the switch within yourself and you've got to do the hard work. Like I said before, there is a moment for acute medication and pharmaceutical drugs if absolutely necessary, but there's no easy there's no easy pill to swallow to fix your life. And that's part of our societal issues is everyone just wants it so easily. But it's true, the reward is in the work. And that's what I found over all these years. I mean, years of hard work and still building. I would never say the work is done. It's never going to be done. It should never be done. The second you think you're some kind of complete being is when it collapses. I think everyone knows that in life. The second you think you've got something is when it all goes away again. It's a continual journey, but the work becomes a reward. So for years, there's always like, smoke that joint, take that drink, have that cigarette, even worse. And it's instant gratification. It's instant gratification, but makes you feel like shit. So the next day you feel like shit. Eventually you stack days and you learn and you get to a point where it's just like you wake up feeling good and you don't want to lose that feeling. And some of this comes with, just maybe age. I mean, I know people are facing addiction of all, but I have kids now. So maybe that helped overall too in the long run is just you don't have the time or energy to mess around. But yeah, you've got to do the work. I mean, you just have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, life is so much better. It is better. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a drink. If it's not a problem for you, have a drink. But if it is a problem for you, you need to face that and know that you're worth it and know that if you do the work and get your butt moving, get running, go on long walks, get the stuff out of your house, you got to have people, if people are in your life that are going to age you in a negative way, you've got to separate from them. There's just hard choices. So you got, but it's got to be your choice at the end of the day. I think that's what they always say is, no one can make that choice for you, and you'll know when the time is right. And gotta gotta see how it's affecting your life. But I promise you, you put enough time in and you put the hard work in, it changes you immediately. Like I have a YouTube channel now, like it's small, but I'm doing videos and I got to get better about doing them, but it's growing. And back in the day when I was drinking, like you just didn't get anything done. And suddenly, you no longer do anything and you just your your energy goes into projects. It goes into more beneficial things. And and yeah, I'm rambling, but
No, you're
that's what I
not. For
got.
the audience, please, what is your YouTube channel? I will leave a link in the show notes.
Oh, it's YouTube channel is at Holden Lee dash 333.
Okay.
And so I talk about, a little bit about my near-death experience in a video, but I've talked about some plant medicine journeys and yeah, and I sort of plan on melding the two worlds and my take, from what I've learned along the way through all these issues and coming out on the other side to sort of teach and reclaim my power. Um, that I sort of a gift I received during that near death experience all those years ago, a gift of having the energy of the universe sort of within you and feeling it
Mm.
at all times and, squandering that for many years, but then, sort of understanding that that's part of your journey and everyone has a journey and it's never too late. I'm in my 40s now and it's never too late to say, you know, this is the time that I'm going to change for good. People think it's too late so often, but what happened before you is just the past, and you can't hold on to the past. You have to create your future in the now and live in the present moment and appreciate that present moment. And I think if you do that every day, you know, you can build on that and make a good life.
Thanks, Holden. Where's the best place for people to connect with you?
I would say the YouTube channel in the
Okay.
comments. Yeah,
So
I
you
like
always
to
respond to them and reply and
yes, yes. Most of the time, I do. Sometimes it gets a little overwhelming when you're talking about the things I'm talking about. It tends to rub multiple groups the wrong way. So you get people who
like
think you're doing the wrong
you
thing.
can't please everyone.
You can't please anyone. So, but I do, yeah, I do like to get in there every week or so and respond, and that's probably the best way. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Um, when you had your near-death experience, you said one of your thoughts was, I wish I could have said goodbye. So many people that have lost loved ones think that. I wish I could have said goodbye or the final goodbye. What do you think about that? Because it's a powerful thought from
I
both
think
sides of our worlds.
yeah, I thought about, if I could have said goodbye, seeing my family there, but it was in the next moment that you realized that it wasn't that wasn't a thing on the scope of time and how fast life is. It just wasn't a thing. It was a thing, you wanted to comfort the living, but you didn't even really mourn it because you just understood intrinsically that they were going to be with you in the next moment. So it was like, it was really
Yeah.
there's no reason to worry about this. They're gonna be here. I'm gonna be with them in a second. Like a second. That was the sense. It was like a snap of a finger, and they were all together again. And so, but when my mom died, um, I had this, people do reach out from the other side. I mean, it happens all the time. You talk to any spouse who's lost a loved one or a mother who's lost a son or daughter, and people reach out all the time. And the night my mom died, I woke up in the middle, my brother woke me up in the middle of the night to go over to the hospice. He woke me up, I'm half out of it. He said mom died. And so we were getting up to go over there and middle of the night. And as I'm walking by, it was her chair where she sat, and she always talked to my sister on the phone for hours. And as I'm walking out, the phone just starts ringing in the middle of the night. And I pick it up and there's no one there. And I just get the chills.
Oh.
And I hang it up, don't think much about it. We go over there and we, are with my mom, with the family. And a couple hours later, I come back with my brother and we're having coffee. And I had asked, I said, who called when we were over there? And no one had called. And I went to the phone and there was no caller ID. There was no record of the call. There was just nothing in the middle of the night, just this right as I walked by the phone, it just started ringing. And there was a sense that that was mom sort
That's
of saying
a
goodbye.
beautiful message.
Yeah. And then, one other at her funeral, uh, we're Catholic, or I was raised Catholic, my family's Catholic. And, they have the incense where the priest lights the incense and waves it around, as he walks up and down the aisle.
Frankincense.
Frankincense. Frankincense. And my mom always hated it. She hated it. She openly discussed how much she disliked that. I don't know why. Maybe it was the sense itself or I don't know, but she just hated it. And at her funeral, the priest is sitting there and he trying to light it and won't light. And he tries for about 10 minutes. I mean, it's really all about, with Catholicism, it's all about the tradition. And he finally gives up. And at the end of her service, he comes up to my dad and my brother, and he's profusely apologizing. And we're just kind of looking at each other because we were just like, that was mom.
Yeah.
She did not want that lady. He said it was the only time it had ever happened. And she had openly talked about how much she hated that her entire life. And at her funeral, it did not work. So, we we get messages all the time. Just be open to it. Be open to the idea that, there's so much going on around us that we're connected into, and your conscious is part of it. Your consciousness and subconsciousness entangles right within the next realms. And think of them as fiber optic freeways where we get energy and we give energy and you can communicate. And that goes back to just try to make your inputs good, try to make your outputs love and peace and beauty, and volunteer in your community and do the best you can. But yeah, there's no separation
There is no
between,
death.
there's no death. We just go on. We go right out that energy highway to the next realm. We return to our people, and you should take comfort in knowing that, because we can sit in fear. What's the point of sitting in a life of fear? You're here for a reason, and you're here to do some work. And that's what I implore everybody to do. Don't just sit here in fear, like afraid of death. I mean, what's a life sitting in fear of death? You just have to go out and live your life and try to do good where you can. And don't worry about being the perfect Christian, because I'm telling you, there's a total sense that it's not about that at all. When we pass on, it's the energy of God is in everybody. It's not secular, and it's not split up amongst different people. That's just, once you have a near death experience, that just comes across as absolutely nonsense. It's just, that's man's power. That's man holding power, how they developed power over each other. That's not real God. And real God is just love and universal consciousness of love and growing love within us, and for us to grow within others. That's what I've learned along the way.
Thanks, Holden. You've got such a passion for life. For those that perhaps feel they've lost passion or certain amounts of joy in their life, what is your advice to
Oh,
rekindle that, to find that?
you've got to find purpose. To have passion, you have to have purpose. And so you have to meditate on your purpose, quiet your mind, shut out the crap, and realize what your purpose is. And so many in our society, at least in America, just like mind washed with the idea of purpose somehow being money. And that just couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, yes, everyone hopefully needs enough, has enough to live and eat, but your purpose should be what you do naturally, what comes to you naturally, what you're good at, but you're maybe afraid of doing. Um, for mine, I had a huge fear of public speaking. Huge fear, even talking to you right now. I mean, I had
You're doing a
hardcore,
great job.
yeah, but
It's only me.
I had to face my fears to like get there in life. I used to have such anxiety that I would have my hand shaking as I gave a barista money to
Oh,
pay for coffee, and I've totally been able to heal myself. And that wasn't with pharmaceutical medications. That was with meditation, exercise, and eating right, and finding out my gene disorder, and, getting the proper vitamintation and plant medicines. But you got to find what you're passionate about. And if you can't do that for a living, at least pursue it passionately as your hobby. I mean, we all aren't fortunate enough to do what we absolutely love to do for a living. But you can do it as a hobby, and throw yourself into it. What's the saying is, too many options make a tyrant of us all. It's not necessarily about making the right choice. It's about making a choice, and pursuing that choice is where the growth and the journey will come from that bring you along the way. Um, so that's what I would say as
mm.
far as passion. Um, but it's a tricky one. It's another one where, you know, if you just can't get off the couch, if you're just so depressed, you can't get off the couch, you know, just get out in the sun, take off your shoes and put your feet on the earth and ground in the earth. There's a magnetic energy field within the earth itself. I mean, this is actual science that will just calm you within 30 minutes. Get those feet into some grass, go walk at a park, sit in the sun, start walking. I mean, that was a big first step for me is just start walking. In walking, somehow don't have your earbuds in. Don't be listening to music. Don't be listening to podcasts. Except yours. I'm just kidding.
Or yours.
Yeah, thanks. No, but yeah, you gotta let the mind quiet. You gotta let the mind, chill out and just get the heart rate going a little bit. Start by walking. Start by maybe just take your shoes off if you're fortunate enough, if you can find a park and walk around a park barefoot, even if it's just that. Don't worry about other people. If you're fearful of other people, what they might think of seeing you, that is not something you should worry about. So many people are just mostly worried about themselves. And no, really, most people aren't thinking twice about anybody else. And just get out there and try to interact with people. The other thing I'll say, and I mentioned it briefly, but the one of the best things you can do if you have no passion and you're feeling depressed is volunteer. Go volunteer. Just go to a soup kitchen. Go do anything. It's literally a life hack for yourself because doing that act makes you feel good, but you're also helping other people. So I would say, yeah, if you can barely do anything, put your feet in the grass, face in the sun, go for a walk, and volunteer if you can somewhere. It'll make you feel better about your life instantly. That's like a 1 day hack. You will come back that day feeling good about your life. That's just a look at it like a hack, and just go do it. We sit and overthink about everything. You just have to. Part of my thing is I'm just in the season of saying yes. Just say yes to life. It's so easy to say no to things, and I'm just like, yes, yes. Opportunities come, relationships grow. Yes. And you start saying yes to life, and I swear I'm just watching things transform in front of me.
That's great advice. And the walking, I mean, I think walking's incredible, but for those that don't necessarily meditate, walking is almost like a meditation, walking meditation.
I get questions like that. Everyone wants to act like meditation is some secret. It's not. You're right. Walking is meditation. Anything, as long as you're just quieting your mind, feel that breath, focus on that breath. I mean, just the in and out of a nice deep breath and how that feels on your body. And just focus on that and don't try to overthink it. Meditation doesn't have to, it's not some secret. There are different levels of meditation, but it's not some secret. It's a very basic breathing exercise that you know, calms the body down and calms the mind down. And walking is most certainly a form of meditation. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One more question. You do healing work now.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about that with the audience?
Sure. Well, you're getting into another huge story with the healing work, but so yeah, I do. You could call it life coaching, if you will. But after I started doing my healing journey and healing with plant medicines, began to, I was put into contact with various people and started doing sort of retreats with groups, and not just medicine retreats, but meditation retreats and almost like just therapy retreats, just talking, putting insights, walking, being in nature, camping retreats, things of that nature. Um, yeah, just sort of allowing people to express themselves and maybe I don't know. I've always had a real natural ability to just give insight into people's lives And so I've been able to do that. I've been fortunate enough to be able to do that for certain, groups of people, individuals, even families. I've spent time with families just for a week or two and just sort of just been able to sort of help them communicate better and bring peace into their lives and reevaluate what's important and what's not. And yeah, sometimes I take that for granted. But I guess people, there is a need for it. And so yeah, it's not by any means some kind of full-time deal. It's just sort of I've been contacted from time to time by different people and we've worked out a way to make it happen. So
Wonderful. Well,
yeah.
it's very much needed in the world. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Holden,
Yeah.
I've loved having you on the show. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the Passion Harvest audience that I haven't asked you to do?
I would just say if there's a final message, it's just this world is this existence, your existence is to raise consciousness. It's to put love out into the world and you need to just know that you have nothing to fear in death and you are reunited with your people, with your family. It's like everyone you've ever met comes from the same place that we do and you know them. It's so much larger than we can kind of put our mind to. So just don't worry about death. It's not yours to worry about. The body has mechanisms for transferring over. It's not even, it's temporary pain, but then it's bliss. And in knowing that you don't need to fear death, live your life. You have more purpose than living in fear. Your purpose is to impact the world around you, your family, your community, you know, and and do your best to make it a good place for everything.
Beautiful. Holden Lee, thank you so much for being on Passion Harvest.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, it was great fun, and thank you for your incredible messages.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.